All right, awesome. So thanks for attending today's session. And what we're going to be talking about today is a little bit different than all the sessions that we've been doing so far. So in general, enablement at GitLab, it's a lot of reading stuff, it's a lot of watching videos and stuff. But one of the things that's going to be different about today's session is that we're going to see GitLab in action, right? So we're going to go through a guided workshop. Um, in which every single time we talk to a customer that's going through a trial, the things that they set up, the things that they're getting up and running, we'll see a lot of that. And the takeaway points are ultimately how we do things better than our competitors and why we did certain things the way that we did. So it's a different approach. And ultimately, I hope that this session will increase our ability to just like really understand the product and be able to speak about it authentically and confidently. Um, the only other thing is we'll talk briefly about personas, but that's it. So if you're ready, we can just jump right in.
Ready.
All right. All right. So new customer journey. Um, First thing that they do is very initial project creation and configuration. We'll talk a little bit about that. What that is. Um, but surprisingly, the second thing that most customers do is they set up infrastructure. So when we talk about GitLab deploying to the cloud or deploying new versions of your applications, then they need to know where that application is. A lot of new customers then do this thing called configuring auto DevOps. Do you talk about auto DevOps in a lot of your conversations or get customer questions about it?
It's definitely starting to come up more now today than ever. So,
Yeah. What are some of the questions that they typically ask about it?
um, it's typically just like, how can we automate CI/CD pipelines? So they're not
Yeah.
usually using the word like auto DevOps, but that's what they're trying to do is automate their pipeline. So,
Yeah. Okay. Awesome. Yeah. So we'll talk very briefly about that, see that in action, understand why it's important. And then other things that we'll do, create an issue, create your own merge request, watch CI run, and then ultimately release new software. So it'll be a good customer demo that we're going through today. Um, and the only other thing that I wanted to talk to you pretty briefly about before we dove right in is this auto DevOps thing. And this is something that's really, really important to understand. So I was a Jenkins administrator for 5 years. I set up all sorts of pipelines and stuff like that. And the thing to really understand is that with something like Jenkins, you have to write all of that stuff yourself, which may take you between 2 and 4 months to really get right. And then so for GitLab to offer something that once you just enable it by clicking a button and for it to set up, maybe 1/3 of your pipeline for you, that's really, really big for a lot of customers because it enables them to move faster. So that's what we're talking about with auto DevOps. We have one team here that their entire job is to make sure that GitLab is really easy to set up and configure. And so this is part of what they've built out. Um, just like a little bit more on like the tool ecosystem world. There's like honestly speaking tons and tons of tools that can do a lot of amazing things, but the problem is that some of them are so complicated that it might take half a year for it to get up and running. And then what ends up happening is that most people install the stuff and they never actually use it. Um, I was working in a deal once where a customer actually bought something for $70,000 and never installed it because it was too complicated. So that's not uncommon. And so auto DevOps is part of how we make things easy for GitLab. All right, awesome. So have you heard of Learn at GitLab?
yes, I love it.
Okay, cool. You may have actually already gone through some of this stuff before. Have you gone through the GitLab DevOps platform?
Briefly, I've played around more with like the static demos for CI.
Okay, let's
Stoked
go
for
for
this.
this one then.
Hmm.
Okay, well, awesome. This is the demo of what a new customer does. Um, so just jumping through some stuff real quick. Here's the GitLab UI. And the first thing that we have to do when we're setting up a new GitLab server is that we need to create our first project. So Tell me about the difference between projects and groups. Like, what's the like what do we use projects and groups for with GitLab?
To my understanding, the project would be, is that like essentially like the epic, like the main actual what you're working on, and then the groups, is it just to break off portions of the massive project overall? Or
Yeah,
would love for you
that's
to
a
explain.
yeah, that's a really great answer. So a group is like all of our engineers as one group, and then each team is like a subgroup. So like, let's just say that we can make all of sales development as one group, and then Ramona Elliott's team's a subgroup, Hannah Schuller's team is a subgroup, so on and so forth. Now contrast that with a project. A project is a code base. So when we look at something like this, all of this stuff is a project. So let's just say this corresponds with one website and we're working on 5 websites in our organization, then like we would have 5 different projects. Okay, cool. So let's set up our first project. It's pretty easy to do. I just click on this plus icon, click new project. And then the first thing that we see over here is that there's actually a bunch of options over here. So the whole goal of this is that we want to make it so that a new customer or someone who's evaluating GitLab has the best chance of succeeding. Um, so what are some of the 3 things that you see up top?
Create from template, import project, or CI/CD from external repo.
Yeah, exactly. So if we create from a template, then this gives us a bunch of the files that we need to get up and running. So it makes it very, very easy. All I have to do is click create from project. And then if it's a Python project, there'd be a Python entry. If it's an Android project, it'd be an Android entry, so on and so forth. So this just saves me time. If I want to import project, this is when we're trying to steal other people's business. So let's just say that we have a repo in GitHub. We just want
Hmm.
to copy all of that stuff into GitLab. Well, that's just importing from GitHub, right?
Hmm.
And then so notice over here, we have all sorts of different things that we could import from. And the whole goal is that we just want to make it so that people can ultimately migrate their stuff over to us. Last thing over here is CI/CD from external repo. So this is basically if you want to continue using GitHub, but you want to use GitLab CI in
Hmm.
conjunction with that GitHub. So let's
Okay.
just actually do a blank project here. I'm going to go add in a title for my project. It's going to be a simple app. It's going to be a website. We'll make it a public project. Let's create it. And okay, great. So let's scroll down. And then now I need to get GitLab to talk with my local developer workstation. So what I'm going to do is GitLab gives you all of the configuration stuff that you need to get up and running. So it gives you the text that you need.
Okay.
So let's click over here, open my terminal. This is my developer workstation. All I have to do now is copy and paste what it gave me into my developer workstation. So let's do that. And then I'm done. So now my developer workstation is talking with GitLab. It was that simple.
Wow, that was quick.
Yeah, it's way faster than if you use GitHub.
Mm.
Um, all right, so have our app up and running. It's a simple app. And now we need to have GitLab know about our infrastructure. And the reason why this is important is because if we're deploying to production, it needs to know where those servers live, right? So what we're actually going to do is we're going to add in a server cluster. This is going to be a Kubernetes server cluster. And as opposed to this being super complicated, this might normally take someone um, maybe a day, maybe half a day to do if they haven't done it before. But using the GitLab UI, it's just going to take them 10 minutes. And so
Wow.
the whole idea was once again streamlining everything.
Mhm.
So let's click Add Kubernetes Cluster. We're going to specifically get one from Google Cloud. So all we have to do is sign in. And so I'm going to give this a cluster name. I'm going to go give some configuration details, scroll down. I want 3 servers in my cluster. And then all I have to do is create Kubernetes cluster. And so now the Kubernetes cluster is spinning up. This is Google Cloud now, right?
Mm.
So GitLab just talked to Google Cloud, and then basically said, hey, give me some servers to work with. Google Cloud says, okay, here's your 3 servers to work with, right?
Mm.
And so that was super integrated, super streamlined. GitHub, Jenkins do not do this at all. And
Wow.
ultimately, this allows us to save a ton of time. So the whole goal with everything that we do is to create a streamlined experience. Let's go back into the project details page. And the other thing that we want to do is enable auto DevOps. So we talked about how we have a team here that literally their entire goal is to make sure that GitLab is easy to use. So let's enable auto DevOps. And so I'm just going to click this. So notice there's 3 options here. Do I want GitLab to continuously update my servers, or it gives me some other options? That works for us. So let's just hit save changes here. Go back to operations, Kubernetes. Check out on our cluster again. So right now, doing just more configuration.
Mm-hmm.
Let me go back into Google Cloud. It's still being instantiated, just finished. So now let's go back here. So this is another example of us saving our customers time. We just finished our Kubernetes cluster in Google Cloud. And so now to get everything set up and configured, you need to install some stuff on the cluster so that they really talk and work together. So regularly without GitLab, that might take me maybe about 1 to 2 days to get right. But what we did is that we can actually do everything simply through the user interface. So over here, I'm in the GitLab UI. All I have to do is hit install. This is installing some stuff onto the Kubernetes cluster. So I don't even need to mess around with the Kubernetes cluster. I'm doing everything through GitLab.
Mm.
And then here's all this other stuff. Let's go install Ingress because we need that. Let's go install Prometheus. We need that too. Let's go install the GitLab runner. So I didn't need to log into the cluster. I didn't need to muck around with it. All I have to do is do everything through the GitLab UI. This is very different from what other people do.
Wow, this is so fast.
Yeah. I used to have to do all this stuff by hand. It might take me 1 to 2
Uh,
days to get right. And to be able to just do everything through the UI is
yeah,
literally, it's a big deal.
set minimal context switching.
Just waiting a little bit. Okay, so just finished. Now let's scroll back up. So I need to basically just copy some stuff in here. Let's do that. Save changes. And now we're done. So literally, we got our code base into GitLab. We got new servers in the cloud, and now they know to talk to each other. That took us maybe 5 minutes to do. All right. So the next thing that I want to show is how we monitor our cluster. So this is the cluster health. Some of the dashboards. This is a new cluster, so we don't have any data in, but we're going to eventually stand up our application, and then we're going to see like these charts start to fill in. So we'll go back to this later. All right, so let's check out our project. And so we're going to go back from the top. Developers, what they do is ultimately they just solve these tickets or issues all day. So we're going to create one real quick. This is going to be a simple task, just improve the home page. I'm going to assign it to my colleague, and then I'm going to submit the issue. And now we're going to basically see this this issue. So this is what we call a Kanban board. All of your issues start all the way to the left, but it's a visual representation of work. So once things are starting to get done, you put them in the doing column, and when they're closed, it goes in the close column. So that's how they flow. So let's actually start working on this. I'm going to put it into the doing column so that someone else on my team knows what's happening. And let's actually improve the homepage, right? And we can do this all in GitLab. So it's pretty simple for us to do this. Let's just descend into our files. Here's some of our code. We just have to go edit some stuff. Let's go change this from Tanuki Tech to Tanuki Tech powered by GitLab Technical Marketing. Very simple change. All right. So I have to hit commit, which is basically just saving it. I have to give a commit message because it's like, hey, if we're changing the code base, we need to tell people why we're changing the code base. So let's actually put in the commit message. We have to create a new branch name. I'm not going to worry about that right now. And then finally, let's make a commit. So this is really awesome. And I want to talk about what a merge request is real quick. We can't just have our code base where anyone can edit it, because otherwise the most junior person comes in and could potentially like really mess things up for us, right? And then so generally how it works is that you have to have a review process. And so we don't just automatically edit the code base. We create what we call a merge request or change request. And the whole idea is I am now making a request to change our code. I have to now prove to other people that this is a good idea. So I'm basically writing up something where it's just sort of like, here's the change that I'm trying to make. This is why you should accept it. So I'm creating the merge request right now. And check it out. So all the GitLab automation is running. We didn't really have to write any of the automation. We didn't have to spend, literally this would take us several months to get set up with something like Jenkins. But with Auto DevOps, like it's just running completely automatically for us. So let's check out some of the automated jobs that are running. So the first thing is that we're building a software artifact. So it's like, if you download something from the internet, it could be like a .zip, it could be like a .gmg. This is like building that package right now. So let's check it out. So that just built this is in particular something called a container. So it's building a container image. And one of the things that we do is we actually store the container image too. So over here is the container registry. Without GitLab, you'd have to get another server and store it on that external server. So that's additional money for that additional server. But with GitLab, everything's combined together. So let's just check it out. We just built this container image, which is a save file for our application, and it's stored in GitLab. So it did this completely automatically for us. We didn't have to set up or configure anything besides enabling auto DevOps. What we're doing right now is if I wanted to download this artifact into my local computer, then I can do that immediately. So that's what I'm doing right now. Because right now the application save file is on GitLab, but if I want to get it onto my local computer, then we can do that as well. And that's what we just did here. So now let's check out what else is happening in our pipeline. What we just showed is that GitLab automatically built that application file, the distribution file for us. So going back into the running pipeline, you can see other stuff is happening right now. Great, so everything just finished. Let's check on our merge request to see what's happened. And let's check out the application itself. And so this is what we call a review application. If I had this in my previous job, this would have saved me maybe 20 to 30% of all of my time, because I used to be a software tester. And the big challenge with testing software is that if you have something like GitHub, and I'm reviewing all this code that's coming in, I have this pull request, right? So I have to be an engineer, and I'm saying, oh, this looks good. This looks good. Problem is, I don't really know what this does because I'm not used to it. And so it's really, really, really hard to review some of this stuff if you don't have the context of what the rest of this code does. So basically, I'm just trying to say is with something like GitHub, you're just reviewing the changes by looking at the code changes. With something like GitLab, however, we actually give you a live running version of your application so that you can actually see the change. So once again, my change request wasn't approved yet, but for someone reviewing that code change, they can actually see what the changes actually are by just seeing this live running review app that we have.
That's awesome.
And then so, yeah. So, and then over here it says Tanuki Tech powered by GitLab Technical Marketing. That was the change that we made earlier. So that's awesome. That helps out with our review. Now let's check out some of the other stuff that's happened. So our security results are finishing right now. Let's check out the SAST changes. And then so we found some security problems here. This isn't something GitHub's trying to implement this right now, but they're not nearly as good at it as us. And if you have Jenkins, you probably don't have this. So let's take a look. I found this problem, Spring CSRF unrestricted request mapping. It tells you literally exactly where the problem is. So the problem is with this block of code. So I know exactly where to look. It tells you more information on what this is in case I'm not aware of this kind of problem. And it makes it really easy for us to just create issues. So let's just say, hey, I want to resolve this. Let me create this issue. So boom, we just created an issue. We can assign it to ourselves. Now I know, hey, I have more work to do. I need to go come back to this later to fix this thing. So let's get out of here and look at some of the rest of the security results that we have. So we just looked at SAST. Let's look at DAST now. All right, so it's found some additional problems. Once again, this is not something that Jenkins typically has. GitHub does not have this. So GitHub does not have DAST.
Wow.
So this is the problem. It tells you exactly what the problem is. It tells you literally what part in the application the problem is happening. So it has to do with this one web form. And so let me see if I can go mess around with it. I'm going to hit submit right here. And then this result is not supposed to happen. So I just verified with my own hands exactly what GitLab found. So I don't want to mess with this right now. I'm just going to dismiss this vulnerability. Gotcha. And I'm trying to figure out what the, all right, cool. So it wants us to close the security report. So let's go back to GitLab. Let's look at license management. Is license management something that comes up in your calls a lot?
Um, I feel like people they just want to understand like what would be considered for a user or something along the lines of that
Yeah.
as far as licensing goes.
Would you like me to go
Yes,
into,
please. Yes,
yeah,
that'd be
okay.
helpful.
Yeah, for sure. So the big complicated part of software is that GitLab has probably around 300 to 500 individual components, and many of those components are open source projects that we actually use for GitLab. So these open source projects are free, so we just use it to go build out GitLab. Now the problem with that is that we want to sell GitLab, which requires us to have a certain software license. And what you don't want to do as a business is to want to have a certain business strategy, but then to pull in another piece of software that doesn't allow for that. So I'll just give you an example. Um, let's just say that you want to run your business a certain way, but your engineers are just pulling in all these different components that one of them requires allows for commercial use. Another one says you can never commercialize this whatsoever. Then having all of these dependencies and libraries in, if they don't align with our business strategy, then they can compromise it.
Mm-hmm.
So this is what we're scanning for here. It basically says we've detected 9 licenses. So this is Apache 2.0, BSD, blah, blah, blah. So now we have to determine whether or not we like these licenses or not. So that's what we're doing right now.
Awesome.
It's basically a compliance thing.
Mm.
All right, so we went through all of the results. Let's just say it looks good. We're just trying to update our homepage, right? Um, and so that should be done. Looks like I just need to scroll down, submit the comment, and then let's merge this these code changes. So let's do that, and then so now another pipeline is running. In this second pipeline, which we didn't configure, we never created it, we never set it up. All of this stuff was given to us through Auto DevOps, right? And
Wow.
all Auto DevOps was literally just clicking a button. Was we're going to descend into this, and now what this second pipeline is doing is it's actually going to change our servers so that they reflect the changes that we just submitted. So that's why it says production over here. So let's just, now that we're done with our change, we want to go do some post change, just sort of like steps. So it's like software is typically like version 2.1, 2.2, 2.3. So we're just going to go do some of that like post change, like cleanup type of stuff. So first thing that we're going to do is we're going to tag our software project. Let's create a new tag. So we're going to call it version 1.0. It's pretty simple. And then for release notes, this is basically like, all right, what did we do? Well, we updated the homepage, right? We found some security problems, but we don't want to mess around with it right now. But this basically just tells other people we made these changes and the reason why we made these changes. So let's scroll down, let's create our tag. Let's go back to our project. And Now what it's going to do is it's going to automatically build out a bunch of stuff for us, basically saving us a ton of time. So we just created our version 1.0, and if someone else wanted to come down out and download our app, then it's very, very, very easy for them to do so. So check this out. We can download it as a zip file. We can download it as a tar file, so on and so forth. There's 4 different options here, but this is something that GitHub does not do. And if I were using Jenkins, I would have to build out a job that does this. So it might take me half a day to build out that job, but GitLab basically just does it completely for you using the UI. And right over here, all they'd have to do is click the download button. It's pretty simple. All right, awesome. Okay, so let's just check on our pipeline now. I'm just curious as to if our servers have been updated yet. Let's check on the second running pipeline. Scroll down some. All right, so all these jobs are finishing. All right, so we think that everything is done now. So let's go check up on these changes. I'm gonna go into the environment section. It's just taking a little bit to load. And over here, we have one new server that is running our new application. So that is really awesome. If I were doing this with Jenkins, this would take, I actually did build this out in Jenkins once. This took me a couple of days to build out, and GitLab basically did it for you completely, like automatically. So, yeah, so we only have one server that's running this application, and that's what the green dot is over here. Let's actually check out these servers. And let's actually check out the website, right? So this is the new website. So we literally made a change in GitLab, and then GitLab automatically created a new server running the latest version of our code completely for us, without me having to really do very much manually at all. That's like the power of GitLab and all the automation that we give it.
It's amazing. I feel like it reminds me like if you could set up like a robot or a bot to like make your workflow more efficient, that's like what GitLab can do for you, but in such a much more powerful way.
Yeah.
So this is awesome.
And one thing that I do want to say is that if you use Auto DevOps, it only works for specific applications. But that being said, we are like I used to set stuff up in GitHub and Jenkins. I've never seen a product that you can get things set up as quickly as you can using GitLab. So the one caveat that I say is Auto DevOps isn't for everyone, but GitLab in general is still, even if you can't use Auto DevOps, like extraordinarily efficient for getting things automated. It is great at automating things. Okay, so the next thing that we want to do is we only have one server that's running our application. Let's just say that we want more. This is something that would normally take me probably about like 4 hours to get up and running. But using GitLab, we can configure this pretty easily. Let me show you how we do this. All I have have to do over here is to just give some inputs. So I'm adding in this thing over here. So I put in 10. How many servers do you think are going to be created after I hit save here?
Well, 3 were created last time. I have no idea.
Yeah, I'm going to put in 10. Let's see if it
10.
does it. Yeah, you're exactly right. So we just have to wait.
3.
No, it's going to do 10.
10. Okay.
So I just redeployed, all using the GitLab UI. If we didn't have GitLab, this would take a lot longer. But the whole idea is that we don't want our users leaving the GitLab UI. You don't need to go use like GitHub, then switch screens, context switch to something else, and do something by terminal. The idea is that everything should flow in GitLab itself. And so just creating this new environment, right now it's creating these new servers and it's 80% done. Let's hit refresh. And I have all my 10 servers in. So that was literally how simple it was to scale an application. Now let's go check out how it's doing from a performance point of view. So over here, this is something that's pretty advanced. But what this is telling us is how slow our website is. And we had a spike around 10, 16, and then it's gone down. And then we can see that this spike corresponded with the change that we made. And this is really, really important because we're making changes to GitLab all the time. And now we can definitively say, hey, our website got a lot slower when this person made this one change. This change was 11D36BC3. And then so because GitLab gives us these graphics and these logs, we can now say, okay, maybe we should get rid of this, or maybe we should fix this, right? This is something that is really, really, really advanced. I've actually never seen a tool that does this before. So let's get out of here. Look at some more of the different performance things that we have. So how fast is it running? How much of our memory are we using? Because sometimes when we make a change, it will make our application worse from a memory perspective, and sometimes it will make it worse from like a efficiency perspective that like is outside of memory. So this is about right. Right now, what I'm doing is I logged into the server and I'm just like messing around with some stuff all through the GitLab UI. And so it's just another example of being able to do everything through GitLab. I don't have to go pull up my local workstation, but I can just do it through GitLab itself. Let's just get out of here real quick. And what I want to do now is I want to change my auto DevOps setting. So what we just saw was that we created the merge request, merged, it automatically redeployed for us. Let's say that that's a little bit too aggressive for us. Because let's just say that we had a junior engineer, right? Every time they merge stuff, we kind of want to vet it a little bit more. Otherwise, maybe we could break our website, right? So I'm going to go select this other option, automatic deployment to staging, manual deployment to production. So what do you think the difference between this is and the first one?
Well, it's automatic. So though it was auto dev, we were just seeing it was still something that we set up. So I'm wondering what this automatic deployment looks like.
Yeah, that's a really, really great question. What do you think it means to manual deployment to production? What does that
That
mean?
rather than it being automatic that you would manually need to deploy it to production.
Exactly. So what we do is if I select this, GitLab will automatically create a bunch of new servers for us.
Hmm.
But for us to actually turn that into production, we have to manually do it. So someone has to literally go in and sign off on it. And then that's safer for our environment because we have this new junior engineer. And we basically just want to like make it so that someone more senior can like check his work. Let's hit save. Let's go check out our CI/CD again. So it's we just changed it, right? So let's see how things are changed. Let's click off a new automation job. And now that we changed the auto DevOps setting, some of the stuff in here is going to be different. Let's run the pipeline. So over here, you can see um, there's a bunch of like similar stuff, right? What are some of the things that are different? I'll give you a hint. It has to do with these two columns.
Staging and performance.
It had performance before.
Oh,
What
it
about
did.
this one?
Production.
Yeah, exactly. And
Hmm.
then so what we can do now that this is different is
Hmm.
that we can roll out 10% of our new servers, update them. If we like it, then we'll update it to 25% of our servers, 50% of our servers, 100% of our servers. So this allows for a gradual approach. All right, awesome. What did you think about the demo? Anything that was surprising? Anything that I can help clarify?
Honestly, you just being able to put it in context of like your personal experience using Jenkins and GitHub and how long it typically takes to do this type of workflow in comparison to like auto DevOps with GitLab, it's really powerful. So it was a great overview. I really enjoyed this.
Yeah, thank you. The one thing that I would say about Jenkins is that Jenkins is a server that automates jobs, but you
Hmm.
have to write 100% of that automation for you. Versus with GitLab, we give you a lot of the automation out of the box, where
Out
after
of the
you
box.
install GitLab, it basically can start doing stuff immediately for you. So
Right.
that's the big difference with us and Jenkins. And like the time for us to really get up and running with Jenkins is maybe 3 to 4 months is not uncommon. Versus like with GitLab, it's much, much, much sooner. In terms of us versus GitHub, GitHub can't do a lot of that stuff that we just showed, all of the Kubernetes monitoring, all of the attaching environments, that's stuff that it can't do. So what it's basically done is try to get a lot of actions to basically supplement. And then there's a lot of problems with actions though, but GitHub on its own can't do like over 50% of what we just looked at.
Um, Question, are they able to have like plugin architecture that would like give those capabilities, which obviously it's another plugin, something else that could break, but is there like integrations to enable auto DevOps within GitHub?
Yeah, so they don't have any version of auto DevOps. Like
Hmm.
they haven't tried to do anything like that.
Okay.
What they did instead is they knew, hey, GitLab can do way more than us. That's a problem.
Hmm.
So why don't we just create this place where other people can extend GitHub for us? And then so if I go into the marketplace,
Hmm.
then you can see that there are over 7,000 different extensions for GitHub that we can
Mm.
get. And so every single thing that you can get under the sun, you can get through this marketplace. And so that's the way to sort of think about how much stuff is in here is this is everything that GitLab can do, right? So
Hmm.
in total, there are about 60 things that we can do.
Hmm.
If you combine GitHub with everything in the marketplace, they can do
Hmm.
substantially more than us. Um, But that being said, there's a lot of problems with actions. So the biggest problem with actions is exactly like you said. It's more stuff to
Plugins, right?
integrate. It's more
Mhm,
stuff to maintain. That's exactly
mhm,
it. And a lot of people don't like actions.
mhm,
Thanks for asking that question.
mhm. No, this is extremely helpful. Thank you so much, Chris.
Yeah, for sure. All right, a couple of slides left and then
Mhm,
wrap things up. So, one of the things that I want to talk about real quick is who does what. And I think that this is important because when we're prospecting new accounts, there's all sorts of different titles and sometimes it can get confusing. But in general, these are the people that are involved. Um, Sort of understanding what they do is this should be a product manager, not project manager. I need to update this slide. But
mm,
a product manager determines, all right, 3.2 of our app, it should have X, Y, and Z. X, Y, and Z turn into a bunch of issues. And then, so they determine the course of the product. Um, and each issue is like, okay, I need to go update my homepage. I need to go make it faster. I need to go change this button to another color, right? So that's step one. Step two is the engineering managers. They're now responsible for getting all these issues done. And then so they're the people who understand, okay, Rachel's really good at this type of stuff. So why don't we give her all these issues? And Sarah has been really trying to, she asked me in my one-on-one that I want to learn about Kubernetes. So I have one Kubernetes issue. I'm going to give it to her because that's what she asked. So the managers assign the issues. After that, the developers, they ultimately solve these issues by creating change requests. Um, the developers also review the change requests. And then the DevOps engineers, they'll usually update it. So our website, right?
mhm,
And then depending on the organization, there's these two people, operations and site reliability engineers. These are the people who make sure that our website is up and running. So like if you think about Netflix,
mhm,
Netflix literally cannot be slow. It can't go down. If Amazon goes down, then they lose like millions of dollars every couple of minutes. So um, they get these really advanced engineers that make sure that everything is fast, and ultimately the secure team verifies that everything's secure. So tying everything back together, what's the main point? The main point is that to do what we just looked at usually takes people between 5 to 10 different tools. And so that's 5 to 10 different tools to evaluate, to install, to configure, to train your employees on, and to integrate together. And as someone who used to do this, this takes you a lot of time. Um, and so to be able to get everything in one tool ultimately allows you to move way faster. And I used to write a lot of these integrations. So it's something that like I can speak from experience. I'll just give you an example of that. Project management, that's all the issue stuff, development platform, GitHub, automation platform, Jenkins, deployment platform, Terraform. We can literally just condense all of that into one. So we really are unique in the fact that we all have an all-in-one approach. And what we ultimately allow people to do is to become more efficient through automation, allowing people to break down silos and save money just by the fact that would you rather buy 10 things or would you rather buy one thing? So
mhm.
I was just bringing everything together.